Happy Halloween! I am the gaming superhero, and today we make a kit for the Lord of Darkness, Lord of the Damned, Undead, and Vampires, Vlad Tepes the Impaler Dracula. The main villain of Season 1 has now returned to join the roster proper. One of the characters based on one of the classical monsters is a perfect choice for the greatest of holidays. That, and it is a Friday. Can you say double feature? Yes, I also have a DC Rivals concept up. I won't tell you who it is, but it is equally as fitting. It is super convenient that the schedule just lined up so perfectly with the alternating weeks. So once you're done here, go check that one out to properly celebrate Halloween. But with that, we don't have any shoutouts, so directly on to the first appearance. Dracula was first introduced to Marvel Comics in Suspense number 7. Because for the special holiday characters, I like talking about their Marvel first appearance rather than their actual first appearance. I thought it would be more interesting, rather than go back and read Bram Stoker's Dracula. I don't have the kind of time to recap that entire book, so we're just gonna have to stick with the comic for this. The comic is an anthology, so it's filled with a bunch of stories. We're going to skip to the Dracula one, titled Dracula Lives. Very creative. We open on a dark and stormy night, where the greatest horror writer, Sander Xavier, has a sense of restlessness, making it hard to finish his ghost story. When suddenly, there is a knock on the door. A man who claims to have discovered that not only is Dracula real, but alive and wandering the world, killing one person every 10 years. The first one was in 1850 in Budapest. Tartov, the man who came in from the storm, has also deduced that he is Dracula's next target, given his last 10 victims were from his family, and he is the last. So he convinces Sanders to prowl the streets, looking to kill Dracula before he can feast. They wander about until it is 5 minutes to sunrise, when Sanders suggests he should hold the wooden stake, given Dracula would attack Tartov first, and thus be unable to use it. He agrees and gives the stake until there is 1 minute left, when Sanders throws the stake away and attacks Tartov, revealing he was Dracula the whole time. That ends our story. Before anyone can ask questions around the logistics of Dracula's plan, I guess the horror writer persona could just be like a day job to blend in, but then how could he have known Tartov would come to him? Tartov mentions he came to the writer because nobody else would believe him, but still. They also never explain why Dracula wanted Tartov's family so badly. Was it important or just like a random decision? Like, you know what, I don't like this group of people in particular. Whatever, the story was good. Classic vampire horror. Very fun to read, especially during this time of year. I have made the Lord of the Night a tank, fitting for a powerful being that has an army at his back. His primary fire is a melee that will apply a slight bleed every third. This will cause an additional effect later. I didn't give him his sword because Dracula is more known for using his claws and hands, and fun fact, Blade currently uses Dracula's sword as his base weapon in the game right now. That's a true lore thing. That's why his sword isn't the katana in the game. He's using Dracula's sword. So he doesn't have it if he comes to the game. He also has a movement ability, as he dashes forward as a swarm of bats, making him immune to damage. He will also apply a bleed effect to any enemies he passes through. With that, we get to the passive, which is simply that Dracula will be healed by any and all bleed effects. The healing isn't 1-to-1, but with the amount of bleed he can apply, it will not matter. You're gonna see in a minute. Ability 1 is Full Meal, a grab that will hold an enemy in place while he drinks their blood, taking half of their total health pool and transferring that damage to himself as healing. So as an explanation, if he grabs, say, a 200 health hero, they will lose 100 health and Dracula will gain 100 health. This applies to half of the total. So if he grabs the 200 health hero and the hero is at, say, 92 health, he will only take 92 health. He will take as much as he can, if not the full half of the enemy health bar. This obviously makes it most effective against tanks and is limited in that the enemy has to be really close. It's not like Emma's grab, where she gets a dash to get closer and grab the enemy. This ability is one of the few of Dracula's abilities that doesn't apply bleed, but, I don't really think it's necessary for obvious reasons. Yeah, this ability can get pretty crazy. Like, pretty much anyone below half of their base health gets just insta-killed by Dracula, so gotta be careful around him. Ability 2 is Creatures of the Night. Send a large swarm of bats forward that apply a large amount of bleed and hinder any enemy's vision. Not totally blinding them, but putting an effect on them that makes it hard to see. Thinking like there's an effect around like the edges of the screen, sort of making it darker. I guess what's the best sort of example of this? Like getting inked in Mario Kart. Like it puts the thing on the screen. You can still see a little bit, but it's still a bit difficult. This is his ability to command, well, what the name implies, the creatures of the night. A fun ability that makes him different from the already existing vampire character, as well as part of Dracula lore, I felt was important to include. Ability 3, however, is a much more clear use of his minion control, called Loyal Thrall. Flash a short cone that causes any enemies in the cone hit by the cone to become ally bots that will attack their allies and can be attacked by them. The thralls cannot be healed by allies, but also can only be damaged by enemies and, not your allies. It also doesn't use up any ability cooldowns, they will only use primary fire. I felt this was important so as to mitigate how annoying it would be to become a thrall and not screw them over when they regain control. As well as only lasting for a few seconds, it doesn't last very long to have a long cooldown. But I felt this was an essential ability to give Dracula, given mind control is one of those lesser vampire powers that I find super interesting. Especially as the king of vampires, he would have the most powerful version of this power, hence being able to control heroes that are close to him. Very, very fun and interesting, but definitely one of those things that can get out of hand a little bit. The ultimate is Eternal Night. Create an area around Dracula that blinds enemies inside it and applies the bleed effect to them. It also appears like a big black dome that blocks vision for any enemies. So visual cover for allies. This is a pretty nice ultimate that gives that feel of having Dracula in full control, bringing night onto the field, giving him a home field advantage no matter where the map. The name is also an homage to the title of Season 1, where Dracula was the main threat, so I thought that was fun. I am also thinking that the black smoke that makes up the dome would have details of like bats and rats running along the edges, mostly just for like detailing, but still really give that vibe of creatures of the night taking over. And then of course, I gave him a team up with Blade called Immortal Enemies. Both characters sync their rage similar to how the fastball special works, except they don't physically link together. They instead gain a rage that increases both of their attack speed, while Dracula's bleed effects deal more damage over time, and thus getting more healing, while Blade additionally gets like a generally increased damage boost. So you got the one united buff of like attack speed, and then they each get a different second buff. A fairly simple team up that encourages moving in together, given you need both of them to activate to give them nice buffs, different for each character. I was going off of their rage to see each other as enemies and putting that into their attacks against the enemies. It's like a fun little, rivalry thing. Because they're not attacking each other. And it's like a, enemies united, that sort of trope. But that is how I would add Count Dracula to Marvel Rivals. A very fun and fitting character for this spookiest of holidays. I very much hope they consider adding the seasonal villains to the game, or at the very least don't completely take them out of the running for making it into the game eventually. I was very focused on making sure to include as many of the classic vampire powers as I could. So that means being able to turn into a bat, using hypnosis to control others, and controlling the creatures of the night in general. There is the obvious one of drinking blood, but that was fairly easy to add, a lot of bleed effects, and allow them to heal Dracula to really make him an effective tank. So it is also important to note that the bleed effects don't do a lot of damage long term, except in the team up obviously. The killing potential of Dracula needs to be limited in that way given his tank status. I am very happy with how it came out. I think this could make for a great brawl tank, one with actual proper self-sustain, which I feel doesn't really exist yet in the game, given the other tank's self-sustain is a bit lacking. But let me know what you think in the comments. What skins do you think he would have? He isn't getting a short on Wednesday because he is the holiday special and not like the proper Friday character. But I still want to know. Join the Discord for a bunch of fun stuff. And don't forget to check the special DC Halloween treat, also up on the channel right now. And you're welcome to spread terror, my thralls. Blah, blah, blah.